The coronavirus pandemic is quite possibly the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. More than 36 million people have claimed unemployment benefits, and that's probably a gross underestimate of the total job loss.
I don't think there was anything that would prepare us for this, right? This is just so out of bounds.
This has never happened before in the history of the United States.
Unemployment insurance was established as a counter-cyclical stimulus for times like these. However, despite a generous federal stimulus package, many state systems are failing. In March, just under 9,000 of the nearly 400,000 applicants in Florida received initial benefits. At best, states delivered aid to about half of their applicants.
The next paycheck didn't come, and then the next one didn't come, and then the next one didn't come.
Probably called about 1,000 times this past week.
I emailed probably 40 different state reps.
One mid-April survey estimates that for every 10 claims, 3 to 4 tried but couldn't get through, and an additional 2 said that the system was too difficult.
If we don't pass underlying unemployment insurance reforms soon, states are going to spend all of their trust funds. Once those trust funds run out and once states have to borrow from the federal government, there will be a lot of pressure coming out of this recession to cut benefits further.
So how was this fragile system set up? And will it be able to support Americans during the coronavirus pandemic? The Great Depression was a catalyst for unemployment insurance as we know it today. As part of the Social Security Act of 1935, unemployment insurance, known as UI, was established to help millions of workers who had fallen through the cracks.
States were able to roll out unemployment insurance laws very quickly after passage of the original act. People suddenly didn't have to worry as much about an economic downturn.
The basic UI system is funded by taxes on employers. That money goes into a trust fund which states then use to pay benefits to covered workers. The federal government provides the administrative funding, makes loans to state unemployment insurance funds, and half of extended benefits during high unemployment. While states are subject to a few federal requirements, they generally set their own criteria for beneficiaries. That includes the number of weeks someone can apply, how benefits are calculated, how much the employer has to pay in taxes, etc. In Florida and North Carolina, for example, jobless workers can only claim 12 weeks, while in New York, Virginia, and New Jersey, it's 26 weeks. The pay also varies. Massachusetts, the most generous state, pays $555 per week. And Mississippi, the least generous, pays $213. Generally, self-employed individuals do not qualify, and neither do those who leave a job voluntarily.
It also helps individuals retain attachment to the workforce by hooking workers up with employment services and help getting back to work. It also keeps wages from lowering so that people have a higher reservation wage when they're getting an unemployment insurance benefit, and they won't go out and take the cheapest job they can find right away. And maybe most importantly is it's a counter-recessionary measure. The money that goes out during a recession provides a lot of local spending.
That's dollars and cents. Someone gets money in their hands and spends it on necessities, like rent, groceries, gas, and diapers, which stimulates economic activity, something that's desperately needed during a recession.
UI benefits are helpful in trying to shore up confidence. It gives people a sense and understanding that the federal government has their back, that they're not alone in this.
This is only an excuse.
Despite its successes, UI has been politicized.
We only needed one more Republican to get this done.
In the aftermath of the Great Recession, some conservative Congress members didn't believe extending jobless benefits was the right thing to do. They worried it would disincentivize people to seek employment.
There may be cases, anecdotes, where somebody may not go back because they're getting more unemployment insurance benefits than they would get in wages if they took that job back. But my sense is those folks are few and far between. The vast majority of people are going to say, this labor market's pretty bad. It's going to be pretty tough to get a job. I'm going to take the job that is in front of me. Now, having said that, I do think we have to be careful not to offer UI benefits that are very high for extended periods of time because you might have more negative incentive effects.
Congress ended up extending benefits for a total of 99 weeks during the 2008 recession. According to one report, that kept 5 million Americans out of poverty and prevented an estimated 1.4 million foreclosures. However, that has been contradicted by the New York Fed. They argued that the increase in unemployment due to benefit extensions is similar in magnitude to the decline in employment.
Thank you all very much. It's a very important day. I'll sign the single biggest economic relief package.
On March 27, 2020, President Trump signed a historic $2 trillion emergency spending bill into law, the CARES Act.
And this will deliver urgently needed relief to our nation's families, workers, and businesses.
The package included an additional $600 per week and benefits to self-employed workers until July 31st. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which took effect in early April, provided states $1 billion in administrative funding. However, the rollout and the sheer volume caused by the economic shutdown has been anything but smooth. The surge in activity has caused a backlog, exposed dated computer systems, and made phone lines near impossible to reach.
I've probably put in over 10,000 calls to unemployment.
I had sat on their online chat from 10:30 a.m. one day all the way to 4 a.m. the next morning before it bumped me out of the system.
And I've gotten nowhere.
In March, 1.7 million new applicants received UI checks. While that is more than 3 times as many as in February, it only represents about 14% of the nearly 12 million individuals who filed claims for that month.
It's hard to plan system for all possibilities, particularly a possibility that is, completely on the tail of the distribution of possible outcomes.
A more optimistic analysis by Pew Research showed that 29% of unemployed Americans received benefits in the first month of the pandemic. That's not counting the many who have tried but couldn't get through, or the self-employed who now qualify for the pandemic unemployment assistance under the CARES Act.
Only 16 states have fully modernized their IT system. The rest are running, at least in part, on antiquated 1970s COBOL mainframes.
Florida, for example, did update its system in 2013. But according to a report by NELP, a series of new filing requirements made it especially difficult to access. In 2019, auditors had flagged 17 issues with the website that had gone unaddressed. However, states are taking steps to catch up. New York hired hundreds of new staff members and updated its website. In West Virginia, the governor announced that National Guard members who lost their job due to the pandemic would help process claims. Michelle Evermore says that updating decade-old computer systems or staffing up is a good start, but not nearly enough.
Going into the last recession, states didn't have enough money in their trust funds to pay benefits for the length of the recession. Then they borrowed from the federal government, and some states weren't able to pay that federal loan back fast enough. And so what happens when that occurs is employers' federal unemployment tax goes up. Suddenly, employers are keenly aware that they're paying additional state and federal unemployment insurance taxes at a time when they're trying to recover. So that creates pressure, downward pressure on benefit receipt and level of benefits. So since the last recession, a number of states have reduced benefits dramatically.
During the Great Recession, 36 states borrowed from the federal government. As of December 2018, Michigan and Pennsylvania had outstanding bond debts, and the U.S. Virgin Islands was still paying back on loans from the U.S. Treasury. Heading into 2020, 31 states met the criteria for interest-free borrowing, but even that is costly. Let's look at Michigan, for example. For the first month of the shutdown, 27% of the state workforce filed for unemployment, but in March, only 4.4% of applicants received benefits.
We, quickly moved to make sure that we had enough resources in place. We've contracted with third-party call centers to help supplement our call center staff. And then we're also partnering with the Michigan Works Agency to train many of their staff who will help be able to supplement us.
Some of the efforts Donofrio is outlining seem to have worked. As of May 12th, about 90% of eligible applicants had received or been approved to receive money.
It's a little easier to breathe right now with no hands on your neck.
Austin Stevens is one of them. He reached out to 4 state representatives before he finally got his benefits, 7 weeks after applying.
I woke up and sent a whole bunch of people money.
Michigan started the year with $4.6 billion in its unemployment trust fund, the third highest balance in the country. According to the Upjohn Institute for Employment Research, the state will need to borrow $3.4 billion before the year ends.
The question really is, how many more people file, and then how long the duration of these layoffs continues to be. Through the end of July, we think that on a conservative estimate, we would, of course, the trust fund would last. If you kind of have a middle ground estimate, we would probably expend around half of the trust fund through that period of time.
In recessions, the states almost invariably run out of funds. The trust funds become depleted, and that's when the federal government steps in. So every single recession, or at least every one I've studied, the federal government will come in and help the states out.
During the Great Recession, the federal government spent around $335 billion on UI in several rounds of fiscal stimulus. Whether it's extending benefits, transfers to individuals, or providing loans to states, the government will likely do so this time around again. Until then, states will continue to catch up. Florida is already on its way, as are many others. As of May 12th, the Sunshine State had paid 36% of its claimants. That's a long way from 2% initially.
We now know that more than half the states are going to start opening. So I would expect the job losses to begin to abate by mid-May. That'll take some of the pressure off these funds. But having said that, there still will be very high unemployment, lots of people who need help.
There will be a lot of pressure coming out of this recession to cut benefits further to make up for the shortfall. And I'm just terrified that states are going to completely decimate their unemployment insurance systems after this if there's no underlying federal reform and help